Hey, this is Joe at graybenchelec. Welcome back to the pedal teardown series where I take apart new and interesting pedals and show you what's going on inside. Today we have the Source Audio Soundblox 2 Dimension Reverb. Alright, so this is the Source Audio Soundblox 2 Dimension Reverb. There was a handful of 4 of this series, of the Soundblox 2 series. This is obviously the reverb pedal. I don't believe these pedals were particularly popular. I was definitely looking around in the pedal scene. I wasn't doing pedal building stuff really at the time. These came out around 2008, I believe. And I don't remember these too much. I think they were probably priced at maybe the wrong point or something to really capture people. Also, people were probably more interested in the name brands like Boss and Ibanez and Line 6 at the time. So I think these flew under the radar. And just looking around at reviews, it doesn't seem like they were particularly well received. This one had popped up and it was super cheap at my local guitar center, and I just nabbed it because I was interested in the enclosure, which is obviously a custom enclosure. It has the Source Audio logo sort of embossed into it. Just looking at the angles and whatnot, it definitely looks like a cast enclosure that would give them the ability to put the logo in here relatively cheap. It also appears to be painted, which is interesting. It would have been roughly this color just as raw aluminum, but they decided to go and paint it as well, which adds an extra level of cost and complication that maybe they could have just left it raw and would have given it a look I probably would have preferred, but to each their own. It is a digital pedal, so we have a rotary encoder here selecting 5, 10, 12-ish different types of reverb. We have an option control that can be selected here on the left with different choices. On the upper left here is the time control. The upper right has a mix control. The sort of middle right here is a treble control, so like a high cut. And we also have a control input. Source Audio, they first started out making a sort of like this hand control as a ring that you wore on your finger, and it had an accelerometer in it, and you can move in 3 different axes to control different parameters. They call that the hot hands. So that's the HH option here for control input. It also has a couple 1/8" jacks here for more control, presumably. 9-volt DC jack, obviously, guitar in, guitar out, 1/4" jacks. I believe it is a stereo only, so it's not like a TRS, or it might be a TRS, but it's not for 2 channels of audio in or out. It's still mono. And then we have 2 foot switches. These are custom foot switches. You can see they're not, there's no nut holding like a 3-pole double throw foot switch inside. These are going to be custom. We've got a sticker here with the logo, with the information, potentiometer or control names and whatnot on the back. So we have a couple pieces of folded, probably steel here. Info sticker, serial number. These were made in China but designed by Source Audio, which is a US company. QC sticker, and the different names of the inputs and whatnot appear to be screen printed or UV printed on. The control inputs appear to have different options. We talked about the hot hands. There's also MIDI input and expression input. So maybe you could bring a expression pedal in, just get an adapter to 1/8" or 3.5 millimeter, and then you could control with an expression pedal. The out presumably is to send MIDI out to some other device. So you could potentially maybe even like pass through the hot hands or control multiple, like control the Soundblox and some other hot hands capable Source Audio pedal. Not certain about that. We've got 2 indicator LEDs, 1 and 2, 5 millimeter. These little LEDs for the option select and control input appear to be 3 millimeter LEDs, and then an array of LEDs probably under this panel here for the rotary encoder selection. That is it for the externals. Let's go ahead and crack open the pedal. All right, so here are the innards of the Source Audio Dimension Reverb. Let's talk about the enclosure first. So definitely a cast or die-cast enclosure. Here are the mechanisms for the foot switches. So they have a little spring, and the springs sort of fit over top of the inner metal piece. This metal foot switch piece is captured inside the enclosure with a circlip there, you can see. I actually don't have, I was looking around for my circlip pliers, I don't have any. They're essentially 2 pliers with 2 prongs that come in here, and they just When you squeeze them, they're like forceps where when you squeeze, it actually opens the plier jaws and opens up that clip enough that you can get the metal piece out. I don't know where mine are right now, so we're gonna skip past that, but you can see it's just a little metal piece that goes inside. It has a little plunger that grabs a smaller spring, and then a larger spring is what actually presses or gives the push back for the foot switch. So inside, when the enclosure is put together, the outer spring sits around the actual switch here, which is a little surface mount switch, like so. And then this mini spring here sits around that little plunger, and that is what actually actuates the switch here. So this switch pushes against the pad around that little plunger. The larger switch pushes back on the foot switch, pushes the plunger back out when you let go. And the travel of the foot switch is stopped by the outer lip here from the foot switch, so you can't push past that much when it hits the enclosure. Inside the enclosure has this little light pipe sort of thing. It basically meshes up to the different holes for the rotary encoder, and it contains the light from the individual LEDs that are wrapped around the rotary encoder here on the PCB. It has 3 little feet on it at every 60 degrees of angle or so, and those will have to be properly orientated on the PCB here so that they don't hit anything else. It can't be sort of like this, because then one of the tabs here will interfere with the relay. So it's gonna have to be a little bit offset from that, but it looks like there's a number of positions that can work, just as long as, I would say, putting this top one here in roughly the 11 o'clock, 11:30 position should be fine. Something like that should be fine. The little light pipe piece has a smaller diameter at the end that fits inside the holes in the enclosure. And so once they're set in there, they are essentially fixed into place. We have a bunch of screw mounting holes here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different screw mounting for different PCBs. So once this thing's put together, it's gonna be rock solid. Nothing's moving around except what's supposed to move, like the foot switches. So yeah, that's the custom enclosure for the Soundblox pedals here. Moving on to the PCB. It is a digital pedal, so we're expecting some sort of microprocessor. And we do have one. It's a PIC processor here. The specific part number, it's a PIC 18F from Microchip. This over here is a smaller IC, multi-pin IC from Analog Devices. This here looks like a Texas Instruments, maybe a quad op amp. It looks like a 074, which is like a TLO 074 quad op amp. We have some headers here, probably for programming. There's also maybe some test pads here. A couple of 5-pin ICs here for maybe voltage regulation. Here are the 1/4-inch female jacks, PCB mounted, probably stereo jacks, TRS jacks to give different options for expression and for, it was control in and out, right? Flipping over, we see we have more controls. We have the LEDs, the green, and I think these are bicolor LEDs, green and red. And these over here on the control side are just green 3mm LEDs, 2 5mm red LEDs for indication. A couple more high pin LEDs. The top one there is, actually now bottom one is a CY62138F V30L. Lower one there is a Atera, AITERA 5M80Z E6405N. And then we can see our potentiometers. The values are on the side of the potentiometers. They all appear to be linear 25K pots for all 4 of these. And then the rotary encoder is here in the middle. And there's an array of LEDs, surface mount LEDs, all around the encoder that light up those light pipes and show you the selection for the encoder on the top of the pedal. Panasonic relay here. This is the TQ2-L2-5V. So it's a 5-volt relay, probably double pole, double throw. That way you can switch the input and the output at the same time. One thing that's interesting, these push buttons for the, the option select and the control input, they have movement to suggest that they are like a multi-directional switch here where you could go up, down, left, right. But because they fit in the holes in the enclosure, the only option you're given is to just push in. And so I wonder if there's more function to these switches than they're really using on this board. It sort of seems like it. I don't see any other reason to have this sort of tilting capability, or why have that? Why not just have a simple switch? Both of the little switches do it here, where you can sort of almost like joystick them around, like up, down, left, right, and also just essentially push in. Or it might be the case that regardless of which direction you actuate it, it's essentially the same. That might at least be the way they're using it. The switches for the foot switch here have a nice positive feel to them. They're not sort of soft and wimpy like the Boss ones or the Behringer switches. These have a nice positive feel, which is nice because it has to translate all the way through the spring resistance and the foot switch weight. So to actually feel it with your foot, these switches have to have pretty good tactile response, which they do. All right, so those are the innards of the Source Audio Soundblox 2 Dimension Reverb. Let's go ahead and put it back together. All right, that was a teardown of the Source Audio Soundblox 2 Dimension Reverb. If you have any questions or recommendations for a pedal you want to see on an upcoming teardown episode, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button and subscribing. I'm Joe from Graybench Electronics. Thank you for watching.